Beat challenges to help transform his family's business into a regional and global success. What were the hurdles in the path, and how is he using his platform to better his country? My guest is Jamaican business leader, advocate, and group chief executive of Jamaican Teas, John Mahfood. I'm Archibald Gordon. This is Profile. John Mahfood, welcome to Profile.
Thank you, Archibald.
Absolutely, thrilled to have you, especially given your resume, and I have to read it out always for people. I know it makes people a little uncomfortable because it's odd hearing about yourself in this kind of way. But for our viewers, Group Chief Executive of Jamaican Teas, transformed Jamaican Teas from Tetley Tea acquisition in 1996 to a market leader, former president of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, and an advocate on a wide range of issues, national issues such as crime, I'd say social development, community development. I'd include people development in that as well, and we'll talk about that. Jamaica Observer Business Leader nominee and a certified accountant and investment advisor. And outside of that, awards won from the JMEA, international certifications as well, married with 2 children. When you hear all of this together in one long resume, as I have said it, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I've been around a long time, so you accumulate these things. As you go along in life, good things happen sometimes, and I've been fortunate.
Consider it as well as being a success, not just as being fortunate.
Well, I would say not many people would say, consider themselves successful. You, as far as I'm concerned, you face challenges as life goes on, and you hope that you overcome them. But you don't stop to evaluate, too much what you've done and look at the accolades. You just keep on going forward.
I want to talk a little bit about that attitude and that perspective. Sounds like, and I'm always interested in how that relates to how you grew up. So let's talk about that, because business was a part of that sort of family DNA from the beginning.
No matter what your age is, you always think back to the time, when you had that upbringing, that beginning, and so you still think of your parents in a reverent way. And so the same for me. You think back at the most influential people are generally your parents, if you're fortunate. And in my case, even my mother is still alive at the age of 98, and I've gotten to enjoy being with her and enjoy it more now. But they instilled a work habit. From the age of 12, they had me working because my father thought that idle hands cause problems, So from 12 years old onwards, I've been working up to this present time without having a break in between. But
what were they having you do?
Well, they had a retail store downtown, so I was, whatever that involved, cutting cloth, fitting shoes, doing cashiering, whatever it required to be done.
And you said no time off?
Well, very little time off, and so you got to appreciate the time off.
All right, the rest of the time off would have been, I imagine some of it would have been to go to school, so let's talk about that. Wolmer's Boys,
right,
and then off to UTech, but not staying there.
No, I was a really bad student, very, very poor.
What do you mean, what's a bad student?
Dunce. So basically, you didn't really, I didn't really enjoy school. I didn't do well at school. And eventually, I came to the conclusion that the way forward for me when I was 19 or so was to go and do an apprenticeship to become an accountant.
But this was overseas.
Right.
So how do you appear, explain it to me, because as a 19-year-old, most people would not have necessarily wanted their 19-year-old out of their house, abroad.
Yes.
But they sanctioned this, they agree with the idea?
They thought it was a good experience to go abroad, to go and work abroad. And I never thought of it in a way that it was impossible, and I just did it. And I found again that most people are more apprehensive about the things that they are not, that they're faced with. But when they get into it, they acclimatize and adjust to the situation, whatever it is.
What were the challenges in sort of making that transition from one kind of culture, Jamaican culture, to living in and working in the UK?
It was a big challenge for me, because I was working for the first time in a very professional accounting organization, coming from a Jamaican environment where we're not as formal in our approach, formal in our dress, formal in how we approach situations, and a bit too relaxed. So very quickly, I learned the good work habits of what it's like to work in the UK. And then I went on to to work in the US in an accounting firm again until I was about 33 or 34 when I came back to Jamaica.
Why come back?
I didn't feel that I really fit in overseas, and I yearned for, being home. And I think I achieved a fair amount in my experience over there. It was actually a big sacrifice, money-wise, to come back. But what I viewed as the important things in life, paid more than compensated for that.
But you had a culture shift in one direction.
Yeah.
Learned a completely different way of operating, and I'd also everyone else was operating in a different way. And then you come back to Jamaica. What do you encounter? What do you see?
Well, the work habits. Having worked abroad in both the UK and the US, you pick up very, very good work habits. And when you come back to Jamaica, you utilize those. And the result is, while you may be frustrated to some extent that we are not necessarily at the same level, we don't see the importance of going to work on time, of adhering to schedules that you set for yourself, speaking up at meetings, giving your opinions. We don't necessarily see that because most of us don't have that opportunity to work in a different environment. And I think that is a big missing link for us. But for me, it meant that I progressed very quickly up the corporate ladder, whether it was at T. Geddes Grant, which was my first job, or at Grace Kennedy, where I rose to be the director within a very short time. It was just being able to transfer the good work ethics of a first world country and apply it in a Jamaican situation.
And you'd also have an opportunity to apply it to the family business. In a sense, you're doing that along the way as well.
Right.
But I want to talk about that, but let's take our first break on Profile. My guest is Jamaican business leader, advocate, and group chief executive of Jamaican Teas, John Mahfood, and we're back with you after these messages.